Ever wondered why we crave for certain things or experiences, whether it's a slice of chocolate cake or a thrilling roller coaster ride? Well, let's dive into our fascinating brains to unravel this mystery. Imagine you're a detective, and your mission is to uncover the secrets of the brain's reward system. This system is like the control center of our desires, a complex network in our brains that drives us to seek out pleasurable experiences. It's the reason why we can't resist reaching for that second slice of pizza, or why we feel a rush of excitement when we're about to embark on an adventure. Now, this might seem like an obvious thing, right? After all, who doesn't enjoy good food or an adrenaline rush? But there's more to it than meets the eye. This reward system is not just about seeking out what feels good, it's also about survival. Think about it. Why do we feel pleasure when we eat? It's because our ancestors needed to find food to survive, and the pleasure associated with eating encouraged them to do so. Similarly, the thrill of adventure or discovery. That's linked to our ancestors' need to explore and find new resources. So, in essence, this reward system is like an internal compass, guiding us towards what is beneficial for our survival. It's not just about indulging in guilty pleasures or seeking thrills, it's about ensuring we stay alive and well. But here's the thing, while this system is incredibly useful, it's also quite complex. It's not just a simple button that gets pushed every time we experience something pleasurable. It involves a cocktail of chemicals and processes that occur in our brains, the details of which are still being discovered by scientists. And that's where it gets even more interesting. Because you see, while this system is designed to help us, it can also lead us down a path of excess and addiction if not kept in check. Yes, our brains are indeed wired to seek pleasure. But how does this process work? Let's delve deeper into this in the next scene. Meet dopamine, a chemical in your brain that plays a major role in how we seek pleasure. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is dopamine? In the simplest terms, dopamine is a type of neurotransmitter. Think of it like a messenger in your brain, zipping around and delivering important signals between nerve cells. But dopamine isn't just any old messenger, it's a VIP courier responsible for transmitting signals linked to pleasure, reward, and motivation. When we do something enjoyable, like eating our favorite food or listening to a great song, our brain releases dopamine. This is our brain's way of saying, hey, that was great, let's do more of that. This dopamine release creates a sense of reward, a feeling of satisfaction and pleasure. And because this feels so good, we're motivated to do the behavior again. This is how our brain reinforces positive behaviors and helps us learn. It's like a pat on the back from your brain, encouraging you to repeat actions that lead to pleasure and reward. But dopamine isn't just about feeling good. It's also crucial for our survival. Our ancestors needed dopamine to motivate them to hunt for food and seek shelter. Without dopamine, they wouldn't have had the drive to do these essential tasks. So, you see, this happiness chemical is deeply woven into our survival instincts. But what's fascinating is how different activities affect our dopamine levels. Some actions like exercising or learning something new cause a steady and healthy release of dopamine. But other activities, especially those involving instant gratification, like eating sugary foods or using social media, can cause a rapid and intense dopamine spike. This can lead to us seeking these quick fixes more often, even if they're not necessarily good for us in the long run. So, dopamine is like a happiness button in our brain. But what happens when this button is pressed too often? Well, that's where things can get a bit tricky, and it's a topic we'll delve into in the next scene. Stay tuned as we explore the double-edged sword of dopamine and the science of addiction. Our brain's reward system, while beneficial, can sometimes lead us down a slippery slope. Now, let's delve into the darker side of the dopamine reward system: addiction. This is a scenario where our brain's quest for pleasure can turn into a relentless pursuit, often with detrimental effects on our lives. Imagine your favorite food. Perhaps it's a slice of pizza or a piece of chocolate cake. The first time you taste it, your brain rewards you with a burst of dopamine, creating a feeling of pleasure. It's your brain's way of saying, "That was great, let's do it again." But here's where things can get a bit tricky. As you continue to enjoy the same food over and over again, your brain adapts. It starts producing less dopamine in response to that food. You might think, no problem, I'll just eat more of it. But the more you consume, the more your brain adjusts, creating a cycle where you need more and more of the same stimulus to get the same level of pleasure. This is when the reward system can potentially lead to addiction. Addiction is not just about substances like alcohol or drugs. We can become addicted to behaviors too, like gambling or even checking social media. Remember, it's all about the dopamine hit. The repeated exposure to a rewarding stimulus, like winning a bet or getting likes on a post, increases dopamine levels in the brain, fostering a desire for more of the same stimulus. Over time, the brain's reward system gets hijacked. The quest for dopamine becomes a compulsive drive, overriding any sense of harm or negative consequences. The pleasure-seeking behavior turns into a need, a craving, an addiction. So, what started as a simple pleasure, a slice of pizza, a bet, a social media post, can spiral into a destructive pattern, a double-edged sword indeed. As we navigate through life, it's crucial to understand these dynamics, to balance our pursuit of pleasure with a sense of self-control and well-being. Yes, the same system that rewards us can also potentially lead to addiction. Ever wondered why it's so hard to quit certain habits or substances? It's all about the dopamine. Let's dive into the science of addiction. You see, dopamine doesn't just make us feel good. It plays a crucial role in learning and memory. Two key elements in the transition from liking something to becoming addicted to it. When you do something pleasurable, your brain learns to associate that action with the release of dopamine. Over time, your brain starts craving that dopamine hit, leading to the development of habits or even addictions. Now, let's consider how addiction alters the brain's reward system. Picture your brain as a complex highway system. Normally, dopamine acts like a traffic signal, controlling the flow of information and emotions. But when you introduce an addictive substance or behavior, it's like adding a super fast dopamine-fueled sports car to the mix. This car doesn't play by the traffic rules. It floods the highways with dopamine, creating an intense feeling of pleasure. The brain remembers this rush and wants to repeat it, leading to cravings. However, with continued use of the addictive substance or behavior, the brain starts to adapt. It reduces the amount of dopamine it produces naturally, or reduces the number of receptors that can receive signals. As a result, the brain's highways become less responsive to dopamine, leading to a constant need for the addictive substance or behavior to maintain normal dopamine levels. but it's not just about feeling good. This constant need can have a profound impact on a person's life. It can lead to physical dependency, where the body feels sick without the substance, and psychological dependency, where the person feels anxious or depressed. It can affect relationships, work, and overall quality of life. So, addiction is not just about willpower, it's about how our brain gets rewired. This isn't to say that overcoming addiction is impossible. It's a complex process that requires understanding, support, and often professional help. But understanding the role of dopamine in addiction is a crucial first step. So, how do we enjoy life's pleasures without falling into the trap of addiction? Well, the answer lies in a simple yet powerful concept: balance. The key to maintaining a healthy relationship with dopamine in our brain's reward system is understanding how they work and applying that knowledge to our daily lives. Think of it like a seesaw. On one side, we have pleasure, and on the other, we have self-control. If we lean too much toward pleasure, we risk falling into the pit of addiction. But if we lean too much toward self-control, we miss out on the joys of life. So, what's the secret to balancing this seesaw? The first step is moderation. It's okay to enjoy a piece of chocolate cake or binge watch your favorite show once in a while. But when these actions become habitual, they can lead to a dopamine overload, triggering the cycle of addiction. Next up is self-control. This doesn't mean denying ourselves of all pleasures, but rather setting boundaries and sticking to them. It's about making conscious decisions and not letting our brain's reward system dictate our actions. Remember, you're the boss, not your dopamine. And lastly, let's not forget about healthy coping mechanisms. Life can be stressful, and it's natural to seek comfort in pleasurable activities. But instead of turning to potentially addictive behaviors, why not opt for a jog in the park, a chat with a friend, or even a good book? These activities not only stimulate the release of dopamine in a controlled manner, but also contribute to our overall well-being. Understanding the workings of dopamine and the reward system is like having a roadmap to our brain. It empowers us to make informed choices, to know when to indulge in life's pleasures and when to exercise self-control. Remember, it's all about balance. So, go ahead and enjoy life's pleasures, but always keep your happiness button in check.